Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who is excited to do another in his series of Thunderground Thursdays. On Thursdays, I try to find acts that are a little bit less known, might be in the underground, and showcase them here. It's a little bit of a dilemma because my channel, frankly, has been blowing up lately, and it's been blowing up because of the attention I've been paying to the huge releases by Kanye and by Drake and these very kind of mainstream things with a wide audience. But this channel is not just about finding the good in the things which are often derided or the things which are often criticized, like Kanye and Drake, but also in just finding new music, finding new interesting things. So I'm going to be reviewing the album The Witness by the Suuns, or the Suuns. I don't know how to pronounce it, S-U-U-N-S. I reviewed their last album as well. I said, tell me in the comments how to pronounce it. Nobody told me how to pronounce it, so I'll just call them the Suuns. Now, they are Canadian, so I'm doing back-to-back Canadians with Drake and the Suuns. Pretty good spectrum of Canadian creativity there. But the main way that I'm thinking about the Suuns is not just this weird internal dilemma I have where I'm not used to success and it's hard not to chase it. It's when you get 10,000 views on something, it's hard not to chase that, you know. But that's fine. You know, this channel is about learning and experimenting and enjoying art of all different kinds. The problem that the Suuns pose to me is what I call the grower problem. You know, like some albums grow on you. You hear them the first time and you might like them, you might even dislike them. But at some point in the future, you end up loving them and get so into them. And often the reason why something is a grower as an album is that it's, you know, the production details might be subtle, the instrumentation might be subtle, the greatness, like how catchy the album is, like it may not be hooky, but it may be very catchy. The easiest example I can give is when I first heard OK Computer by Radiohead in 1997 at midnight when it came out. My mind was blown and I immediately loved it and I thought it was the most important thing I'd ever heard, right? Like whatever it is everybody said about that album, I said that instantly. Like I heard it and I was like, this is it. 3 years later, 4 years later, I don't really remember, Kid A comes out, Amnesiac comes out, I get those at midnight, and my first listen was bull, this is crap. Get away from the computers, Tom. I like the Ben stuff more, you know? Like I couldn't follow, and I ended up saying that I hated those albums for the first couple months. Of course, now, with hindsight, Kid A and Amnesiac are my favorite Radiohead albums. I still like OK Computer, you know? But the relationship that you have with a grower of an album is quite different. And with this channel, you know, I try to review things that are less than a week old. I never do reactions, right? Nothing I do is a reaction. I just give you thoughts. I don't give grades. I don't give reactions. I give thoughts. But it can be hard when music is like the Suuns, which is very delicate, very subtle. You have to just sort of have faith. You're going to have faith that based on what you hear, this is going to be a grower. And that's what we have. Now, fortunately, I've already listened to their previous music. I stumbled on their last album from 2018, Felt, even before I did this channel. I reviewed their EP last year. So I had enough faith in the band. That I even just, you know, whenever I get money from Patreon, I buy music with it. I just instantly went on Bandcamp and bought the album with the shiny blue whatever. Okay, I just knew that I liked this band enough that even though I hadn't heard a single note from the album, I'm going to like it. Okay, there's the album cover itself. It's a good indicator of what the band is like, right? A kind of understandable red background with this fairly odd picture of a naked man covering up his privates. He seems slightly out of shape, maybe sort of middle-aged. That might be a member of the band, I don't even know. And it's in a reflection, and above him is a picture of an idealized naked woman, sort of odalisque kind of image there, right? A good image of the sort of strangeness of the band, the sort of difficulty to pin down what is the band actually saying. And I'm happy to report, after buying the album instantly, I started listening to it. And of course, the first couple listens, I never disliked it, but I didn't quite get it. So I'm coming to you now, after 4 days of listening to this album very intently, to tell you that I get it, and I think you should get it too. I mean, I think you should get it, buy the album, it's a great album. But even beyond that, I think you will really come to appreciate what I came to appreciate with this album. Now, it's hard because the genre is, I was laughing about this, I was listening to this with my wife, the Dr. and Mrs., who also initially didn't like it at all, and then eventually came to like it quite a bit. Like, it's indie, experimental, Canadian krautrock. That's what I would call it. So it's kind of indie rock, it's kind of experimental, kind of guitar-led experimental, kind of krautrock sounding. It's a hard genre to define because really what this album is it's a very thick and cool atmosphere. It feels like one long song broken into different movements. It has like an overall feel. And I just came up with this right before recording this video. The album, it actually reminds me most of sort of the way it feels, and I don't think you're going to expect this, is What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. Now musically it's not that similar. One song does remind me of it. But the way that it just sort of like, to me, this is a grower for me. I actually initially didn't like it. I love a lot of Marvin Gaye's early stuff, but I had a hard time getting into what everyone considers to be his best album because it's a grower of an album. It sets this kind of atmosphere and this tone, and all the songs feel the same but are also different, you know? And that's what happens on The Witness by the Suuns. Thematically, it all seems to be tied into like themes of view and clarity and eyesight and what do you see. I'll get into lyrics more later. A lot is happening. There's like a fair number of, like the songs aren't that long, but so much happens. There's a lot of journey within each song. Most of that journey happens in the interaction between acoustic instruments and electronic instruments, and they do it beautifully, you know, like a keyboard and a guitar, a drum machine and a real drums. Almost every song has a certain point where the electronic drums are replaced by real drums, sometimes multiple sets of real drums, and it's just, you know, you just get so psyched. You just get so into this groove, you know? In that way, it reminds me a lot of what is currently, and still the only krautrock album I own, Tago Mago by Can, that kind of like long form feeling with very cool, junky, funky drums, you know? The thing about this album is the restraint. There's a couple points, basically every song, when the drums come in, where you think, oh, it's on, here it comes. And I'm sure this is a choice on their part. They could just like maybe turn up the guitar a little bit, turn up the vocal a little bit, add an extra layer or something to make the dynamics in this album just blow your mind with just, ah! But they never quite do it, you know? If a super effective basically drop, you know, rock and roll music even has drops, you know, like where you go from something fairly restrained to something more unbridled, you know. Like, if a full awesome drop that makes you go, damn, is a 10, like they never get above a 6. But they have the points in the song where you know you could get psyched, but they just keep it restrained. They just keep it in this certain emotional, sort of spiritual register, which is still dynamic, but never quite goes all the way there. Which I think is another reason that it's a great grower album. Albums that do that reward you for learning to find the beauty in the subtle dynamics, as opposed to needing the Skrillex waka 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 or whatever, you know? Like it can end up being a more sort of meaningful experience. A lot of what makes this band, I would say, challenging to people, or could be challenging, is the lead singer's voice and the way it's processed. It's high, it's thin, it has like weird distortions on it at all times. It sounds like a chorus and maybe a vocoder or a voice box, or maybe even some kind of rudimentary auto-tune. It's not to make up for any like inability. He has range, but he seems to have an intentionally hard to grasp voice. I compare it to a weak handshake. You know when you shake people's hands and they're like, you know, like, and that's better than people who like do the toxic masculinity, like, I'm gonna break your hand, you know? It's better than that. You remember when Macron and Trump shook hands? You know, like, that should have been the end of civilization. We should have just said, that's it, we're done. We failed. Whatever this is happening here, we didn't figure it out, right? So a weak handshake is better than an overly strong handshake, but it can be hard to hold on to. And it feels very intentional. Much like this album feels like it's intentionally not going for the jugular with the drops. This kind of thin voice can be hard to get into. But let me tell you why they're great. Let me give you an example. I'm gonna include a link to a song. This is what I call my homework. This is my stamp, the song of the album, up there, okay? It's called Witness Protection. And if you listen to this song, you'll get a sense of what this band sounds like and why I think they're so great. This is one of the catchier songs, and it shows their dynamics. Starts off with this keyboard kind of going up and down, kind of catchy, sort of chimes in the background. I used to have a rule: if there are wind chimes in a song, it is automatically bad. That is a stupid rule. And this album has so many wind chimes, and I really enjoyed this album. You know, some of the most ambitious vocals in terms of the range are on this song. The lyrics, these feelings come, these feelings go. And then right after he says that, like some bongos come in. So we have sort of like automated electronic sounds with the keyboard and the drum machine, and then some bongos come in. And a lot of these themes appear to be about the difficulty of witnessing what's happening in the world. That we need witness protection, you know? That we're sitting there and we're watching travesties of humanity, right? And then we need witness protection. Witness protection. Is that a Freudian slip on my part that this music is pretentious? No, it's not. It is a Freudian slip that you think I'm super pretentious, which is always one of my big fears, but what are you gonna do? Maybe don't call yourself Professor Sky. But anyways, as it goes in, you know, it says, it's harder than F, it's on the news, I see it with my eyes bleed like the Virgin Mary. I've been online in the sea of free pornography. So it is, I would say again, maybe in this theme of, you know, what's going on, like witnessing, being in difficult times. But what's cool about it is the way the song builds. The lyrics start to, like the pace accelerates. These odd sounds in the background accelerate. The sounds of distortion comes in, like a piercing woodblock comes in. And then he says, minding my own business. And while he says my own business, the drums come in, the Can-Tago-Mago style drums. And you're just like, you're so excited and you're just so happy. And you're not quite orgasmically excited and jumping and screaming damn and all that. But just underneath that, it's so great. It builds into this bridge, which is like, has these sweeping guitars over everything. The drums come in, the drums come out. I'm a rat, I need witness protection. And there's these tinny drum machines, which are then augmented by conga. Again, like, I think congos and wind chimes, this is my secret theory. And if you know anything about the Suuns, could you please tell me, are they actually influenced by this album? It feels to me like this might be the secret to unlock, like what makes this album interesting and maybe difficult to get a hold of. Because wind chimes and bongos were also very well used very well by Marvin Gaye. Eventually on this outro, this bass comes in, the guitars just get unwieldy, everything starts to fall apart, and it ends on the discordant sound of a skipping CD. You see what I'm talking about? They go a lot of places in not that much time, okay? It is a very, very good song. And if you don't like it the first time, give it a second shot. I think you might like it. Okay, I'm gonna go through the rest of the album a little bit quicker than that. It opens up with a song called Third Stream. Very slow, getting into a lot of insect sounds all over the place. It's almost like the cicadas are like drums. It's kind of like whamming keyboard. The guitar reminds me a lot. I do have this CD, but I forgot to show it here. Neil Young's work on the soundtrack to the movie Dead Man, the Jim Jarmusch movie with Johnny Depp before he was the worst human being, or before we knew he was the worst human being. Like that kind of like, there's a style of Neil Young guitar which is not the wailing, like there's a sort of a plaintive, very strong, lonesome feeling that Neil Young can get in his guitar. And I'm not trying to be a Canada phobe or whatever, a Canada-phile, just saying, oh, they're Canadian, so they must be trying to sound like Neil Young. This is just how the guitar sounds to me. And I don't think guitar sounds sound better than they do with Neil Young. And this piano comes in, it's kind of a plodding piano, the voice, and just this kind of chaotic sounds. Sort of what I define as almost like Kubrickian keyboards. I don't know, Stanley Kubrick is able to use keyboards to create a certain unsettling atmosphere. That's often what they do here. Kind of a futuristic keyboard solo happening here. It's one of those settings on the keyboard where you can't play more than one note at the same time. So it creates a sort of weird sound. Very just surprisingly lush. The whole thing, the production, keyboard, guitar, boom, thump, everything. Eventually this cool drum beat comes in with the guitar and it becomes kind of epic. Like this sort of song where you sound like you're just, I don't know, lost in the Ontario woods. You end up being in this very lush place. Very cool guitar. Like for one single moment, the guitar matches with the voice entirely. And they do this a couple times throughout the album with great restraint. And when they do it, this is what I'm talking about, a grower. Next time I listen to the song, when I get the album on vinyl and it's shipped to me, I'm going to listen to the song and I'm just going to know eventually that little bit with the guitar and the voice on that first track where it's at the same time, that's coming. I'm happy to hear the rest, but that part's coming. I love music. Okay, next song is Witness Protection. I already talked about that. Then See Through. This is funny because it sounds a lot like early Nine Inch Nails in a weird way. Now, like the vocals and the guitar, still kind of, I don't know, sort of Sonic Youth. So it's kind of like a Sonic Youth, Nine Inch Nails mashup. That's how it sounds to me. And if that doesn't sound interesting to you, I don't know what to tell you, bud. It's a very kind of cool song. It gets kind of blown out and crazy, kind of abstract with the drums. Very cool production on the voice, getting kind of lower and higher. Next song, Time Bender. All these themes about like seeing things. I want your eyes, can I see it? The drums just sound really great, especially on headphones. More bird sounds, a lot of nature in here. Again, the influence of Marvin Gaye, I think part of it is just having ambient noises all the way throughout an album to make you feel like you never left a room. Very kind of cute and funny sounds on the keyboard that interact with his weird voice. Again, the guitars come out of nowhere. And again, the guitar does that thing I talked about before where it's matching with the vocals. A very good trick used sparingly. The next song is called Clarity. Again, these themes of like seeing and understanding. A little bit unclear, I can't quite tell. The singing, everything on the song feels kind of woozy and out of phase. Is it too late to change your mind? Speaking of Radiohead, this whole thing reminds me a lot, in a very good way, of the Kid A Amnesiac era. There's kind of this outro that sounds kind of like a Kid A outro with a automated arpeggio thing kind of going. It's a little bit weird. Also, like the way horns are used reminds me a little bit of Amnesiac. No one's going to listen to this and go, "Oh, clearly they're trying to be Radiohead." You know, but it's more just sort of like a feeling that they're able to get. This whole album is very much in my feelings. It's a Drake reference. That is being a Canada-phobe. The Fix. Okay, this is a song which, listen, okay, I get it. You're probably not still watching. And if you are still watching, then you'll do what I ask because you've been watching me talk about some band you maybe haven't heard of for 17 minutes. Get headphones and listen to the song The Fix. They are doing some awesome fun stuff here. This cool guitar goes back and forth. The lyrics are a little bit more playful. I think he says, "What up, fool," over and over again. And it's like they're jamming with themselves. And there's like chimes, and there's guitars everywhere with the flange, and the drums just keep doing interesting stuff. And they're in like different channels of your headphones, and the guitars are doing different things. It's like a flangey guitar, it's like a single note guitar, it's like a drum over here, a drum over there. That drum takes out, this drum takes out, that drum takes out, this drum takes out. All these things are happening inside your head. It never feels too busy. It never feels like stupid or gratuitous. It's just a very satisfying headphone experience. The rhythm even kind of reminds me of In Da Club by 50 Cent. Dun, 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 dun. Now, I doubt that they're influenced by that, but that kind of cool, like head nodding rhythm is really quite nice. It gets slightly abstract and polyrhythmic towards the end with these double drums coming in and out. A really awesome song. Seriously, have a listen to The Fix by the Suuns. The Suuns. How do I not know? I should have looked that up before the video. It doesn't matter. Now, will you tell me in the comments if it's pronounced Suns or Suuns? I will pin it to the top if you tell me how to pronounce this band's name. This band where I just bought their damn album without even knowing how to say their name. Go to My Head is an interesting song. Chimes coming back. This is the most directly this song actually, I really do think, sounds a little bit like a Marvin Gaye song. Kind of an R&B jam, kind of slow and epic, kind of a driving song. Could almost be like a soundtrack to like a sort of a road movie. Very cool tricks here with the guitar, or just technique, I guess, not tricks. I'm just using a lot of pull-off licks, you know, so like I wasn't planning on doing this, you know, but I mean, like, you know, you have, right, that's like playing, but then, okay, well, this guitar, the action's all messed up, but that kind of sound of like pulling off, it's sort of doing that. I have to fix the action on my Jag Stang. Okay, God, now I'm like hurting her plants. Okay, the Dr. and Mrs. If I mess up that plant, seriously, look at this plant. This thing's beautiful, isn't it? Look at that. Would you please say in the comments what a beautiful plant that is? And I almost messed it up, so. Sorry. But you know, that cool kind of pull-off trick is being used very nicely. It creates sort of like his voice, a sort of intentional softness. You can call it weakness. I don't think weakness is bad in all cases. And then the album ends with the trilogy. Now this is the third song where I'm saying, oh my God, you have to hear this song. But, one second, oh my God, you have to hear this song. This one's kind of upbeat, sort of fun. It's like, it starts off with like bongos and a drum machine, arpeggiated keyboard going along. And the voice is the most clear, most direction, most purpose. He's telling some kind of awesome and weird mystical story. Each verse sort of tells a story about like something to do with fire and civilization. 1.5 million years I have guarded this flame and burned my eyes, mesmerized, ingrained in my retina. 50,000 generations of lovers entwined, 1 million years of fossils burning in a pyre, moving to a future without fire. That's a great line, right? All of it, I sort of get it. It's sort of about civilization and moving forward, and maybe this fire represents like humanity or our relationship to technology or something. I don't know what. But there's something very interesting and cool and engaging about this, right? But how much deeper can I dig? Put out the fire with a tear, exhume all that is within, I'll give you one more year. So it's a mystical, interesting thing. And listen, I don't know. I don't think this is just a bunch of people stoned writing crappy lyrics, okay? Like, that's always my fear whenever I hear songs that are this kind of like mystical, that it's just people just being boring and doing drugs. I don't think that's it. I think there's a point here, and I don't quite get it, but I look forward to spending the rest of my life trying to figure it out. This theme of like, what is this flame? He then talks about 3 billion dreams blew out the flame. And just anytime you sing the word billion, you just sound like Carl Sagan, and that's cool. Billions. 4.5 billion years of radiant light. And then like this child appears, and I don't know. It's a very interesting mystical song. And then after the bridge with just the synth, the real drums come in. It's another one of these great moments where you just get super psyched, a restrained moment of complete ebullience. Ebullience is a word. Is it the right word right now? Ebullition? I don't know. If I'm going to be a pretentious professor, I should probably know all the words. And then it ends with this line. Billion patterns of variations of themes, all kind, and you walk this wire 'cause you know what I mean when you're stuck between the moon and the morning light. No other point on the album do I want more for there to be some kind of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard style, woo, and then just burst into something crazy. But instead, it does this beautiful line when you're stuck in between the moon and the morning light, a line which will stick in my head for the rest of my life. When I wake up early in the morning, I'm going to have this stupid line stuck in my head. I am stuck between the moon and the morning light, right? But it doesn't go crazy. It just gets this nice chorus, which is a beautiful chorus with interesting melody and talking about, you know what it's like colliding on a spear, bleed your heart till it's dry, I'll give this one more year, and the drums come back. Very fun, cool singing, and he seems to have a lot to say. So there's my review of the Suuns. You know, when I'm done doing these Thunderground Thursdays, I always feel so good because my life is made better by discovering this music. And hopefully you're on this journey with me as well. And even if you don't like this, you know, hopefully you find some kind of music through this channel, just trying to find stuff. And be like, hey, what's this? Is this good? Is there any good music out there anymore? Okay, well, until next time, I'm going to make sure that I didn't hurt the wonderful plant. I'm going to put these CDs back, and there's the camera.